Very good. I'll call the meeting of July 27th Industrial Development Board to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
Yes, David Wagner.
Here.
Logan McCabe. Muted.
Here.
Nancy Cook. Nancy, you're muted.
Here.
Jeff Jones.
Here.
And I see Mr. Crandall is joining us right now. So as soon as he connects. Okay, Dirk Crandall.
Yes.
You are here.
Yes.
Okay, sir. We have a quorum.
Very good. So I guess first thing we'll go, we can talk about the necessity for the electronic meetings.
That would be
Due to
Daniel.
COVID-19, that we were still under social distancing protocols and thought it'd be beneficial to do this via Zoom. So any questions? All right. Next on the agenda is what, financials?
Approval of minutes.
Minutes.
There is one change under the staff. I put Danielle Kaiser instead of Smith, so that one will be changed.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Logan McCabe,
Second.
Nancy Cook, second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Now we'll get in financials.
Okay. The financials, did everybody have a chance to look at what was emailed out? The only disbursement we had was to do our portion of the advanced placement exams for $7,696.33. That check was cut and paid to them by the end of June. So we had an opening balance of $102,423.18 and an ending balance of June 30th of $94,726,085. We still have the $100,000 CD, which I guess we'll talk about later, but you can see the activity for the year, for the fiscal year in the check register. I did go ahead and include that. I did request the metrics from the AP, and they did not get it to me by today's meeting. So as soon as I get that, I will email that out to the board. So you'll be able to see what students were affected and how their college careers and basically all the numbers, so you all can feel confident in your investment. But that is all, sir.
Very good. Entertain a motion, we accept the financials.
I'll make the motion.
Jeff Jones makes a motion.
Second.
Nancy Cook with a second. Any other questions or discussion? Do we need to roll call this or just voice okay?
No, you could just.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Very good, thank you.
David, as long as we're on financials, I talked with Tara about, and you saw the emails about getting reimbursement since we're dealing with the bond issues related for the 420 and some expenses that are reimbursable. So we should be seeing some payment back for the last several years of a portion of the audit from the trustee from the bond issue in 2016. And Terry, you can speak to this if you'd like. We may see a little bit of reimbursement as an eligible expense under the 420 legislation, a portion.
Yes, that's one thing. I talked to Caroline Oakes, who's with Wilmington Trust as the trustee. And the audit, what we're doing is we're looking at 25% approximate of the audit cost would be related to the property tax bonds. Approximately 25% would be related to the sales tax bonds. And then probably 50% would be related to other IDB activity. But then I've asked Caroline to reimburse us out of the sales tax and the property tax bonds, and we can get reimbursed as part of the issuer fees. And what she'll do is the next time that she has sales tax and the next time that she gets the property tax revenue, she'll withhold the portion of the audit and reimburse us. We should get the sales tax reimbursement sometime in October, November, and we should get the property tax reimbursement about in next April or May.
So at least that'll allow us to recoup some of the expenses that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Do you have just if you're approximate figure between the two that we should get reimbursed for?
I think with the sales tax bond and the property tax bond, I think it's roughly 12,000 this is for multiple years.
I'm trying to find the exact figure for you. Just one second. I think Tom's right. I think it's around 10,000, but.
Okay.
Because we've spent probably 28,000 on audits since it fell to our budget. So we're trying to recoup at least the last 3 years.
No, Tom has a better memory than me. It's $6,660 for each part. So it'd be a total of a little bit over 13,000 when you add the two together.
Yep.
So that'll go directly into our operating.
Okay, good. Good catch, Tom.
Oh, well.
Thank you for your.
When our numbers started dropping without any income, you start looking around.
All right, good deal. Anything else on financials?
No, that was all.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Tom on financials or Tara while we got Tara? All right, what's next?
We've got the follow-up. You all remember Heath Gwynn when he was in the room with some of you all and on the computer with others of you all. And he gave a really good presentation. There's a ton of information of all the different things that he's involved with, not just the accelerator, but some of the other work that's going on. And just because of time, you all were asking him questions, and they were fairly engaging questions. And I thought, after speaking with the chairman, that we may bring Heath back just to answer anything that he didn't have a chance to answer during the work session, or maybe you all had some other questions for follow-up or some information you'd like. So anyway, I invited him to take up a little square on the computer screen and be available for Q&A if y'all had any. You want him to hit the highlights of what he discussed?
Yes, please.
Okay, Heath, it's all yours, buddy.
Thank you. No, it's good to be back with you guys and finish some questions and answers we had. We did have some great questions, and we did run out of time, I believe, last time. The presentation was mainly about what SyncSpace is doing throughout the region, as far as how we're positioning entrepreneurship to be a component of economic development that works really closely with what Tom's doing, what Matt's doing, what we're doing at the county level, and even beyond that. We're currently running specific accelerator programs around how we help local companies that are showing promise. How do we help them get into a revenue position, and then also help them get ready to hire jobs, create jobs within their own companies. And that's mainly to try to keep some of these really promising companies here in our area. On a different level, we have our signature programs, which is a component of which we recruit companies, some local, but we're also focusing on bringing other talented startup companies into our area, in which they can be very successful in our region and what we're doing really well. Right now, we're focusing on a lot of things that are key to Bristol as well, including manufacturing and technology, as well as some interesting in the healthcare space. And then one of the programs that I presented with you was a partnership in tandem between Bristol and Nashville, that we will bring a program that they have in existence there, tie it to the brand and the culture in Bristol, so that we can recruit music or entertainment related startup companies into Bristol to focus on building their companies in Bristol. So the programming is really as much about an economic development tool as it is about helping small companies, but finding that line in which what we do for some of these really budding companies can mean something to our economy is really the overall goal of ThinkSpace. We do have a grant that's written with the ARC grant, which we will help, if we're awarded, which we'll know in late August, will help bolster up the project that has already been funded through grants for downtown Bristol, as well as we've engaged with some other local vendors in Bristol to help offset some costs for their time in helping some of these small companies as well. Really, there's a lot of conversations to have, and we had good discussions about the impact of COVID and what we're doing related to that. To answer and remind, we have a program in which we are scholarshiping companies that are small businesses that have asked for help pivoting their business model. Typically what that mostly shows up as is you got a small business like a retailer or a lot of food businesses who are trying to figure out how do they bring curbside into their workflow. All restaurants decided to answer the phone and help do curbside just to stay open, but there's another level of that in which they have to integrate technologies and other things into their company to make it a little more profitable or easy to manage. So we have a lot of different programs that are running right now, and I think in the presentation I provided, it had a strategic calendar for fiscal year 21. And the things that we were looking for with Bristol, and Tom and I have been working on this for some time, along with April and many others, is really right now we're looking for support. How do we make sure that we have the support of Bristol in what we're doing? Are we ThinkSpace targeting things that are important to you? The second thing is that we are looking to help continue to develop access points to other professionals in the region and in Bristol specifically, and how we can help startup companies or talented individuals get connected with people that may be of interest or key to their business growth. And then the final thing that we had mentioned in the presentation was asking that we are looking to bring $50,000 to Bristol, and we're asking for the IDB to consider matching that dollars into what we're doing. That's a quick review of the presentation.
Dave, I think this is very interesting. One of his comments is that the city council is very excited about that. Chad, I don't know if you want to talk to that right now, but we'd certainly be interested to know, was this in a city council meeting that we can review on video or in a work session, or what's the connection of city council been?
Tom, I think we heard the initial presentation probably back at the first of the year.
It was in March, I think.
March 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the main premise that the city council had was we wanted to make sure that we were a part of it in some form or fashion. And, Kingsport had already donated money in. Exactly if that came out of their general coffers or if it came through an IDB type source, I don't know. But Sullivan County was the main contributor, and I think Heath, it was about $250,000 if I remember correctly.
That's right. They were matching $250,000 from the state.
And I think the city of Kingsport gave $35,000.
That's correct. And it was through IDB or KEDB.
KEDB, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we felt very strongly that we should definitely participate, and we wanted to make sure that we were a part of something we felt was very exciting. Tom, what am I leaving out? I think that's about the gist of it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it was received extremely well in council, and this is, pre-COVID, when we started down that economic coma path. So when you all approved the budget, it did not have an allocation for, well, there's a lot of things that didn't make it, including the IDB's funding. So, so it's one of those things that you had brought up, Chad, I believe in a work session about trying to restore some of the budgets that, we financially can when it becomes feasible, and it just kind of got left there. And I think you just need to have that reminder again.
And I'll do that. I'll continue to remind. As a matter of fact, the last statement that I gave, I think, was in probably June when we were finalizing the budget is that we would really, later this year or the first of next year, look at reinstating our $50,000 allotment of money to the IDB. What's a little bit, or let me say this also too, it would be great with the IDB to have plans for the money as well.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that a lot of staff, I'm going to say mostly staff members on the budgetary side of things, look at is that we're sitting on $200,000, and we've been there for the last couple of 3 years, and there's a lot of ideas. I know we've got this is something I think fits within our purview of the IDB, as well as our virtual hiring expo that I'm thinking we're going to probably get some info on that here in a little bit as well.
Mhm.
So as we kind of move in those directions, what other ideas does the IDB have to help in the in economic development? We've actually talked a little bit about housing grants, individual grants for housing. I don't know if we can make that happen. There's a lot of legal things that that have to work out. We have pertaining to housing, we have right now contacted the comptroller's office about things that we can and cannot do, and we also have it now in front of the Attorney General. Is that correct, Danielle? It's in front of okay. Yeah. So at any rate, there's a lot of different things we can talk about that we need, but we felt very strongly that this was, a great opportunity for Bristol to participate.
And Chad, just to follow up on the on the amount, which now we aren't at the over 200,000 anymore. There was some discussion at our last meeting about whether or not rolling the CD, since it's still at First Horizon at this point, into a more liquid money market, which is earning at about 0.25% right now. David, I know that was a question. So, whether they'd roll the full 100 or part of it or something like that, just for some program work. And that's something we're putting together right now. So budgetarily, with our program of work and some of the expenses that we will have coming up, and being able to support efforts like Heath and some of these other things going on downtown, we are going to need to see a source of revenue. And there are some things that we will bring to bear for the IDB as far as grants and some other things for them to do their program of work, so they don't necessarily need to rely on the city and an appropriation. It's some things that they could do on their own, as a standalone organization. Not separating itself from the city in any way, but just being able to do more with some grant funds.
I'll just also mention too, I think this is the second year that we've gone through the budget season and we have not funded the
That's
IDB.
exactly right. Yeah, so that's 100,000 that we would have normally had. So anyway, and we do have some, the budgets and some other things that we need to work on as a board. I'll need to get you all some information so we can get into that more on a granular level. This is hard to do through Zoom, but I can start sharing information with you all, so you can start making, the IDB board can start making decisions on what direction it'd like to go.
But for Heath's purpose, is the IDB being asked to match the entire 50? Or I think I heard Chad say that is not in the city's budget. So would that have to be our match?
We probably need to be working towards that. And then that would be something that, as we go forward and put a budget together, we can see, if the board wants to participate with some of the efforts that Heath is doing. We just have to make sure statutorily that we can fund it. regardless of the city, whether the city participates or not, it's something maybe IDB can, just to show its support. It may have to be a little bit, Heath. I mean, obviously we'll support you with letters and everything else that we possibly can. But when it comes to financial, we'll have to probably have a few more meetings to make that decision, the board to make that decision. So we just need
From my perspective, that's okay. As long as we're moving we think we're moving in a good direction for some commitment there. The only timeline that I have related to the money side of things is the project with Nashville, and I don't even know that doesn't require the full 50 for that engagement. That's one of those key things that's coming down, and I'll provide a little more information on dates. But I think we all agree we want to work together in the support side, and then we'll figure out the financial aspect as you guys figure those things out on your own.
Okay.
Heath, the other organizations, Kingsport, as well as Sullivan County, are they funding one lump sum per year, or are they funding that quarterly, or how's that happening?
For year one, Kingsport funded up front. Sullivan County is funding quarterly, and then what we're having discussions with others is more on a quarterly basis as well. So we're open to different structures, whatever might make the most sense for you.
But they all have committed to at least 1 year, or have they committed to multiple years, or have they committed?
Well, we've got the commitment for year one from Kingsport and Sullivan County, which we are on fiscal calendar, and then we're working through the second year now with some of the others. So Bristol would technically be a year two. The way the strategy was designed originally was that Sullivan County would partner in year one, Washington County and Johnson City comes on in year two, and then the larger First Tennessee development would come in year three, which we're focusing on Kingsport and Bristol out of part of our year one goals, and then Johnson City would be a focus maybe later in fiscal year two.
So,
excuse me, go ahead.
It would be for we'd be starting to fund in year two. Is that what your what your thoughts are?
So we're technically in year two. Fiscal year 21 is year two.
Okay.
For what we're doing, and yes, we want to roll out all the Bristol projects starting in this year. The Nashville Project Music starts recruiting in fourth quarter, so that would be kind of a target time frame in which we want to have everything in order to be able to participate there. But kicking off everything in Bristol is key to year two.
Right, and Heath, with the music project with Nashville, that is the one we're trying to maximize the match, because they do better than dollar for dollar, correct?
Yeah, we're doing dollar for dollar with Nashville out of Lodge, Tennessee, which is different than Project Music. That's in partnership with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center.
Okay.
For Bristol, yeah.
Now, how much would that, if we're just looking at that one project, how much of that do we need to be thinking about in the budget?
Honestly, I don't think I can give you an exact dollar there. If we can, I'll work on that number, but we can also partner with what we're doing in Sullivan County should we have to schedule that out kind of in, throughout the part of the year.
Okay.
Heath, last time you talked to us a little bit about other support beyond financial support. And you got into a little bit, just, tell your neighbors, tell your partner, tell your friends. And are there any specific things that you would encourage us as individuals or just part of this community that you'd like to see us do to help you guys?
Sure. So, to me, that's one of the important sustainable things about this program that we'll need to do. And we're doing a really great job of it now, but I want to engage as many partners as possible. And the way I look at it is that SyncSpace does the vetting on the companies. I'm not going to bring a company that I think would be unsuccessful should you guys have a partnership that might be attracted to that partner. But there may be opportunities in which we can elevate a partner, like King University is one that I used an example of last time, in which if there's something specific that's happening within the King Business School, if there's a potential for them to tap into what we're doing with a startup company, then that elevates King as well as what we're doing. That's one thing I want to make sure we can accomplish. I'll give you an example of what we're doing with ETSU right now. We have a medical device software. It's a predictive software that takes EKG data and predicts potential cardiac issues or cardiac failure points. And they have a partnership with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Well, one of the cool things about this story will be, and this is not out yet, but she was scholarshiped in Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Nashville, and she still chose to partner with us in Northeast Tennessee first, which to me shows that we can be competitive in some of these spaces. But for her, what we're doing is we're setting up a partnership with ETSU in which ETSU can be highlighted and also publish research around what we're doing with this startup technology and in our effort to bring her into our market. So not only does the startup have benefit, but ETSU also has an opportunity to both benefit us in the program, but also elevate what they're trying to accomplish as a research university. So as we find opportunities where other partners that you know of could be elevated the same or could help us in helping a company relocate or grow in our area, that's one of the main things that we're looking for is how do we engage partners here locally.
Are there any other questions for Heath? Tom, I guess steps for just continue to have conversation and look at the budget and make a determination with city council's input on what we want to fund and how and when.
If we at this point, have maybe have on our agenda for next month to have this, to discuss it amongst the IDB board members about funding and where we stand on everything else. Does that fit pretty good in your timeline if we are able to, make it this, or let me say this, figure this out and make a decision on how we're going to fund it between now and the next 30 days or 60 days or what? Does that dovetail with what your time horizon is?
Yes, that would be fine. We, like I said, the first major milestone that probably would have need of any financial input is the start of the fourth quarter, which would be October, the start of the second quarter for me. Once we start getting into that project, but up until that point, anytime I'm available, I would love to join in, or if you have other questions for me, you just let me know.
Yeah, I'll stay in touch with Heath through the next month, and then I can have a little more budget with a narrative at the August 25th meeting. 24th meeting, sorry, had to look at the calendar.
Any other questions for Heath? Very good. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Heath.
Thanks, Heath.
All right, Mr. Anderson, what's next?
Well, we've got our program of work discussion with Matt. He's going to tell us what's going on with the virtual hiring expo.
Good, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Glad to see your faces on the screen. Hope you're doing well. Since our last meeting, it spurred some questions and some development ideas that we had regarding the virtual hire portal, if you will. And so right now, David Nelson is working on that to get out a beta for you guys to basically try to break and to fiddle with. So once he's finished with the changes that we suggested, and Tom and I can take a look at it and give him the green light, we'll get that out to you guys, and that way you can mess around with it and provide some input and questions and answer in regard to how it works.
But even if, as soon as we get that link, we'll send it out to the board. And as Matt said, y'all can try to break it.
One question that was asked of me, and I did not know the answer to it, was this looks like it's going to be a fairly sizable cost. I think, what did we say? Was it what was the ballpark cost? Did we say?
The ballpark cost with it, if we actually take control of the portal and we own it will be around $42,000. There is another option though to be the primary licensee, if you will, for the portal, where we will have all access, all controls, all the information that we need in terms of tracking and things like that. However, it will be basically a license. We won't have ownership of that. And I think that clocked in at about 20, right around there. And then, we're working right now with the pralines and cream version of this. And if we need to whittle cost, we can. David made that apparent that you could do that. If you do that, though, it kind of cheapens the portal. So it's up to you all to decide, but those are the two prices that we were given, and that's what we're looking at.
Tom and I had a brief discussion about this, and I mean, obviously we'll get more information, but I think we were both in agreement that if we could just tag on with a lesser amount, let him try to promote and sell this to other whoever, municipalities, whatever, that it actually may benefit us because we would get the upgrades basically for free then.
Right. Yeah. As the primary licensee, which means we're kind of at the top of the list, no matter where it goes after that, we will receive all the upgrades. So if there's a V2, a V3, a V4, et cetera, we'll get all of that. We'll also get all of the administration and the monitoring and when there's a hiccup and something breaks, they come in and they fix that, and they'll do that at no additional cost as well. So it would be my recommendation that we utilize the lower cost as well.
And there's also the opportunity, as more people or more organizations sign on to this, or communities, there could be some money come back to us. Not over and above just having the ongoing costs. It'd be just some of the licensing fees could potentially come back to the IDB for its operating.
Expand on that, either Tom or Matt, how that revenue flow potentially could happen.
So David and I have been discussing, there's a lot of different ways that this can generate revenue, in that, we can offer advertising space in the portal. We can connect and tie to companies and to businesses. We've also kind of concocted a gold, silver, and bronze structure of, if it's going to be available for free for companies to utilize, but it's free with limits. And so once you reach that limit, so just round numbers, say you have posted 50 jobs for your business, that's all you can do for free. And then if you want more access or more and more availability on the site, you can start paying that at an annual fee. And then also we talked about, so if Matt Garland's company wants to be shown in the searches and when the applicants look at this page, for Matt Garland's industry to constantly pop up, you can pay a fee for that. So the algorithm within the system can generate it where it's kind of like a Google search. If you type jobs in Bristol, something pops up and it'll pop up at the top. And we can utilize an algorithm that allows that company to constantly be on that front page so that they show that. So it's almost like a VIP system, and that would be a revenue generator for us.
But that hasn't been decided on completely. That's just something in the future, kind of like the 2.0 version.
Is that what you were referring to, Tom, when you talked about different communities?
Yes. As this expands, it would just be unlimited, basically. If this platform is very successful and it connects employers with employees, and it's seen as a very beneficial matchmaking service, if you will, it'll grow by itself. We don't want to just keep it for Bristol. If it's something that's going to help stabilize our business and industry, then yeah, definitely we want it out there. Whether it takes it to that other level, it's a wait and see. We'll have the ability, but at the beginning, we want it to be, beneficial initially to the Bristol folks, but then going into Sullivan County and beyond. Should be able to roll it out fairly quickly.
Did we get any?
No, go ahead, Chad.
I was just going. Did we get any other proposals from other web designers?
No, we did not.
No, we did not. This was us working with them based on their specific skill sets, and it's not necessarily a website. This is something that works on all devices, whether they're handheld or desktop. So it functions a little bit like a website, but it's not a website. It's more, it's between a website and an application that you would have on your phone or computer or something like that. So it functions a lot slicker than a website. It's easier to update and change. So, plus the metrics that we would get are going to be a lot more robust. So, but yeah, we worked with Dave Nelson and his group with the Founding Forge folks. It's their skill sets is why we worked with them initially. Plus they're local.
So, Tom, if the board were to decide not to move forward with this, for example, that they would not continue to develop the platform. Is that correct?
They'll develop it.
Do you think they would go ahead and develop it
Go
without?
ahead and do it and make money on it. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a project they're committed to, no matter if we do it or not. They're ready to go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's a good idea, and they got very excited about it, and they've got, I guess, peers in other states that are wanting to buy a license as soon as it is available, if it's available. Okay. So it's kind of caught fire as something that's needed. It's a different way of doing business. We're calling it a virtual hiring expo, but it's significantly more than that. Is what's evolving. So.
Okay. Could I ask, I'm just going to throw this out there. Just, the last couple of meetings we've had, the links to be to us that afternoon. Is this an indicator? I mean, is there an issue we need to be worried about? Or, I mean, is it just the time and effort to get it linkable or something that he wants to show us?
It's time and effort right now. David actually had to bring some folks on board to help with the development of this. And so nothing to be worried about. Okay. I'm pretty picky about what I want you guys to see. And I want you to get the best beta that you can. And so in staying in contact with David and every time we have a conversation, we're talking about moving this forward, to develop this, to add this, to do that. So it's more of nothing to be worried about. It's a work in progress. And once we get it out, it's going to be as close to the finished product as possible without y'all's input.
Okay. I just wanted to ask. All right. Very good. Are there any other questions on this topic? All right, Tom, what else we got?
Under our program of work, I've got basically an overview of the strategic development areas. And before I go into launching into a presentation of any kind, are there any specific questions? This is part of our incentive policy that was passed by the city. And the strategic development areas are the mixed use developments that we've chosen a handful of sites that the city council has adopted as strategic development areas. And those areas have certain metrics that have to be met. It would be a pilot, which is why it would involve this board, but it would function like a tax increment finance with a 10-year, up to a 10-year term. So I just wanted to make sure that, since the policy itself is very dense, so I just took a piece of it. So it's basically eating an elephant one bite at a time. So I thought I would just take the SDA piece and see if there's any questions as far as how it functions. Then I can kind of go into a very, very brief PowerPoint and skip through lots of slides very quickly. I just want to see where the board is and where their questions may be.
Tom, can I ask you one other quick question? This goes back to the hiring expo that somebody else mentioned to me. The question was, we're putting out quite a bit of money for the hiring expo. In some cases in the past, we have charged people for being, companies for, showcasing their company is there future plans so that the Industrial Development Board can get some of their money back out of the web money, the application money, or is this pretty much something we're planning for? I'm assuming at this point for this year we're planning it as free for everybody. But what are your thoughts going forward about actually charging to recoup some of our money from companies?
Well, that's kind of what Matt was going into. Once we do, if we do the virtual hiring expo and have that platform, it's going to have its own name. We're calling it a virtual hiring expo, but it's going to have kind of a gimmicky name going forward as far as this platform. Just like Zoom, no one heard of Zoom before all this pandemic stuff. They've been around, but this matchmaking service, if you will, as people join on, like I said, other communities, there could be a small revenue stream come back. I don't know how long it would take for us to recoup. When we had the in-person expos, the people that paid, the companies that paid were some that were in, say, Bristol, Virginia. That this board did not cover that, but they had to meet certain parameters to be able to participate in the expo. First off, there had to be room for them. And Electromechanical participated, and they paid us for their booth. And it was just based on how much it cost us to do what we did. And I think they paid about $475 to participate. And it was well worth it to them just by the sheer numbers that they got to meet with. So that being said, we had always paid for that just as something to support our existing industry. And it came from all the local partners, the team with April and Lynn and Clay and me would go and we'd meet with our existing industry and employees, having that pipeline was always a challenge. And then being able to partner with the racetrack and have the expo the way we did it, it was very successful. But, right now we can't do anything in person. So the question came up about, well, how do we do this? Well, instead of just having a page with links to the company, this is actually a better way where the company will get what they're looking for, and then a job seeker will be able to match with that company based on their skill sets. And then hopefully what ends up happening is it forms a pipeline. So, we paid for it in the past without expectation of being reimbursed. This year, had the pandemic not happened, the expo that we would have had in May would have actually incorporated basically about 5 counties. It would have been Networks and NetRep's footprint, not just Bristol, and everybody was going to share in the cost. So where we had paid $15,000 or $20,000 in the past, we may have only had to pay, say, $5,000 or $6,000 for our part. and then the partners would have paid for their parts. But instead of having 50 employers, there probably would have been 100 or more. So it would have been much larger, and it would have been a very regional effort. It still would have stopped at the state line. I'm sure, they would allow the people to come in from Virginia if there was room. But initially, it would have been just taking care of the partners that were paying to put it on for their employers. So all that kind of went out the window. We regrouped with the request of, can we do something virtual? And Matt's been working very hard with Dave Nelson and his group. And that's kind of the route we're going. It's actually a pretty deep and wide system. So hopefully we'll have something to you very soon. I guess we shouldn't have promised like, oh yeah, hopefully by this afternoon, because I don't think David even understood when he said that. He would have had some version of it, but it would have been kind of a static thing that you flip through, and it wouldn't have been functional like it needed to be. I have seen it work. I have seen where you can fill things out and it sends you and it pairs you up, and I've seen it work. It does work, but it's not there yet. So
I guess going forward, though, as far as having companies participate in costs, we have not done it in the past. We don't really see that in the future, but we may have partners, other counties, and
correct
networks, and maybe NetRep and organizations like that may help us to offset future costs.
I'd say anybody that's concerned with workforce development, including the state of Tennessee, will probably participate at some level, because it's gonna help existing industry, and it's gonna help when a new company's looking to locate, that they know that they've got a way to even start their matchmaking before they even physically locate. So I think it's going to be very beneficial once it comes out of the gate. But there could be some revenues off of it coming back.
Tom,
Yes.
I think the thing that's confusing to me listening to all this for both of these programs is it sounds like this year that the requested contributions are going to be used for a combination of development and then also ongoing expenses. And it would help me to understand a breakout on that of what's actually developmental costs and what's ongoing expenses. And assuming both of these projects are viable into the future, what would we be expected to contribute in the future?
The two projects he's speaking of with SyncSpace and the virtual hiring expo, are those the
Yes.
two? Okay. Yeah, we can give you the breakdown. I'll get that from Heath, and then Matt will be able to get that from David Nelson. And if we do it through the licensing format, we won't have ongoing costs. We'll just have the beginning up front, and then everything else after that will be covered by the other licenses. We'll still get all the upgrades and all the troubleshooting and everything else, but we just won't have to pay for it anymore.
And then one other comment too is I think that at least for me, these are pretty big. Each of these are pretty big line item projects. Mm-hmm. I would feel more comfortable if we had kind of a budget that we could work with, what other expenses we might be inclined to be wanting to be responsible for too, rather than just addressing each project. I'd like to see the sum of all of the totals so we know total dollars spent to be able to address individual needs for individual projects.
I agree 100%. And we should have that for you for the next meeting. We'll have a breakdown of what our known expenses and what we're already participating in, and just as we go forward to see what this board wants to do. So yeah, we'll have that sent out. We'll have it sent out to you ahead of time, but it'll be for us to discuss, in August. We'll have those budgets for you.
Good, thank you. I think that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we're committing to before we commit.
I think that's a good idea.
All right. Let's go in. Now you're talking about the development.
The strategic development areas.
Stop in your PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'll jump into that real quick.
You're talking about TIFs and pilots and those kinds of things?
Well, it's a pilot, but it acts as a TIF as far as the functionality of it goes. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is that it?
Yep.
I always mess these things up. Okay. Getting into this, we were tasked, when I say we, by city council, they had questions on volunteer parkway. So there was about 15 staff members that got involved, and we looked at 272, I believe, parcels. And we looked at it from a redevelopment district standpoint, which was characteristics of blight. And there were only 3 parcels out of the 272 that actually came close to blight, but none of them were very large. So there wasn't anything to really carry a district. So we came up with areas that were poorly organized. They had some planning issues. Some of the uses were incompatible with its neighbors, the connectivity, and then just ugly buildings, basically. So we looked at some areas and came up with 4 different districts. And each of these districts that would qualify for a pilot would require a mixed-use development. And I used the 714, which is a TIF plan, but that's actually the one that's downtown. But by definition, it's a mixed-use development. It's got a combination of residential and commercial. So the first floor is commercial and everything above it is residential, even though it's going to be rented like an apartment. But this is a good example of a way that you could get rid of some underutilization and not so attractive buildings and put a much more valuable asset in its place. This is the study area. This is Volunteer Parkway. You've got number 1 is closer to downtown, and number 4 is where Friendship Ford used to be. But this is the corridor that we looked at. The green spaces that you can see are our existing redevelopment districts. You can see that number 1 is across the street from a redevelopment district, and number 2 actually is contiguous with the Lavender Lane, the South Side redevelopment district. 3 is where the Executive Plaza is. And then you get down to 4 and it's where Friendship Ford is or was, and then across the street, across Volunteer Parkway, just to kind of give y'all an idea. And here's the SDA 1, the one that's closer downtown. This is where Days Inn is. You also have O'Reilly Auto Parts, but then you have some weird stuff over here. So if someone, say, the hotel decided, or the people that own the hotel decided to assemble some parcels and try to do a large redevelopment that would increase the property value at least $3 million, then they could actually qualify for a part of this pilot program. Here's what I was talking about with, we just called it Cox Street. This is Big Lots here. Here's where Lavender Lane, here's where the apartments are. So it would take everything that faces Volunteer Parkway all the way to the other side. Pals is over here, right across the street. This is where the Advanced Auto and some other things. The back part of it's in a floodplain, so there's some challenges there. But if somebody decided to take large parts of this and try to do some kind of mixed use development, they could participate in this SDA program. This is, I guess, Glenwood, and this is getting into where Executive Plaza is. They're good. There's David's Bank. But if somebody decided to assemble some parcels and try to create, especially with the accessibility of Bluff City Highway and Volunteer Parkway, they could come in with a commercial development that could have a housing component plus some retail. maybe upfit the business offices, demo some and build new. You never know. Then getting into where this is where Friendship Ford was. And then you have this large parcel across the way. This is one way to incent residential, but it would have to be with a commercial element. So you would have possibly commercial development up near Volunteer Parkway. And this trailer park right here, this one parcel, that was actually the only parcel that truly met the conditions of blight on several different avenues, but it wasn't enough to create a district. So this would be a way to create a district. So when you look at what would a mixed use development be? These are examples from some other places. You've got a bunch of residential over here. You got offices over here. You've got just standalone restaurants, some fast food. Then you got the big box stuff back here. So this is what we're talking about. If somebody decided to come and just basically assemble several parcels in those districts, as they develop this stuff, they would be able to sign part of it over to the Industrial Development Board and then be able to get the improved tax amount, if you will, the increment. We would just have to do the math. Just say if the property tax was 100,000 and then they put all this in here and then the property tax goes up to 1.5 million, they could actually get 1.4 million a year for up to 10 years, depending on the metrics. So that would be a way for us to incent some high quality developments in places that maybe they wouldn't have gone otherwise. And it would allow them to kind of be rewarded. Here's another example where you've got some big box and you got residential and you got some other big boxes on the backside. But then if we have to look at it for the benefit, it has to be underrepresented, basically the businesses, they can't exist somewhere else. They have to be able to increase sales tax to the city. But then when you look at, for some of the points, if you guys remember the score sheet, we'll see that in a little bit, that if the wage scale is at least 125% of the average wage for the applicable retail or commercial sector, that they could actually get points for that. But the other part of it is the appraised value of the project. It has to be at least 3 million above than what it was the year before the project was completed. So it's not the investment so much, but the actual property values have to go up. See, that way we would know there would be an increment generated.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is that appraised or assessed?
The assessment, excuse me. So you guys saw these score sheets where you get points for different things. And then if you get over 95 points, you can get a 95% pilot for up to 10 years. So in that, here's just an example of the TIF stuff where you have the current taxes frozen, and that's your baseline. And then as it comes online, then the increment grows, and that goes to settle a debt. And IDB could either pay that back to the developer or it could pay it to a bank. IDBs can give money back to the developer in the form of a grant, but it would be based on a performance agreement that we would have, that they would meet these conditions. And as long as they met those conditions, the city would see growth in property tax. It would see growth in sales tax, plus there would be job creation. Plus we would have a lot more available as far as residential, but it could give us an opportunity to develop these areas in the city. But it would be more than just showing stuff in the city. It would actually allow us to maybe identify other areas. We just looked at Volunteer Parkway. There's some other parts of the city that the city council may decide is worthy of being another strategic development area that would allow pilots to attach for mixed use development. And this could happen out West State Street. It could happen, other parts of the city. So that was a very brief overview, and I just I mean, this has been this is in effect right now. I've talked to a few people that are looking at the Friendship Ford area for possible mixed use. And what they're talking about doing would be connecting to the future walking trail that's going to go from Rooster Front to the Bristol Motor Speedway. So you'd have connectivity there. They're talking about common areas, green space, stuff for the residents. Then you'd also have some big box, and at this time, about 3 different restaurants that definitely don't exist in Bristol, and 2 of them don't exist in the Tri-Cities at all. So you would have some new investment, and new energy coming in on that part of Volunteer Parkway. So this is just another tool in our toolbox, but it would depend on IDB to obviously participate, because the land or the buildings would be deeded over to IDB, to get it off the tax rolls. That was very quick, so apologize.
Tom?
Yes.
Would it require, or what would be the process? Would it require a nod from Sullivan County also, or would it just be the city of Bristol?
Just the city of Bristol, because as long as pilots are less than 10 years, it doesn't go to the county. So the county would continue to get what it got before, just like a TIF would be. So they're not gonna lose. There is a maximum of 95%, so there will be a 5% growth, and the county would realize that too. So it's not a negative net. So they will see growth. But this is statutorily, right at this time, we don't have to go to county with anything beyond 10 years.
This would also be administered, if it was mixed use with housing, this would be administered through the IDB and not through the Housing Authority, or is that both involved, or how does that work?
It's just the IDB. For the pilot, it would be just the IDB. So it would have to be, there has to be a commercial component which actually drives the project. It's retail commercial with a residential component. And then if it's apartments and things like that, they're rented, so they're commercial. But there could be a portion of, kind of condoed out type parts of the development, but that can't be the driver. That just needs to be a minority player as far as the overall project. But we'll look at them case by case and make sure through our legal that everything we're doing is statutorily what's within our power. And if there is a piece that needs to go to the Housing Authority, then obviously they would be partners.
Well, why don't you mention also how we have used pilots in the past and how this differs from what we've been doing?
The pilots we've used in the past have been primarily industrial, for industrial recruitment and development. So, you get a new company in, they invest so much money, hire so many people, pay them so much. And that's something we'll get into. You guys see the new metric on that. But before, it was almost as long as they spent a couple $1 million and hired 25 people, that they got an abatement for 5 years. We decided to make them actually have more performance based and not just rubber stamp any kind of payment in lieu of tax agreements. That we would want them to perform at a higher level, and if they did perform at a higher level, they would get a bigger incentive. And that's the new part of our incentive policy. But it's primarily been industrial up to this point.
So in the case of, you mentioned West State Street, let's say that we were to look at a block of West State Street and it would be only residential. Would that would then go through and it'd be residential to sell. where we would maybe partner with a developer or something of that nature. If it was all residential and it was basically we're going in and actually that would be more of a TIF, wouldn't it? If we were going in to tear down old structures and regrade and put new structures up, that'd be a TIF instead of a pilot. Is that correct? Or
I'm going to let Danielle answer that one.
That's probably a project that the Housing Authority would spearhead rather than the Industrial Development Board. With the strategic development areas, the way that the matrix works out is if there's a residential component to a development that is, it's primarily a commercial residential development, but it's also got residential pieces to it, that project can get extra points in terms of figuring out how much of a pilot the project or how much of the tax benefit the pilot gets. But the IDB can really only own the commercial portions of that project. And for a pilot to work, remember the IDB has to take ownership of the real property so that there are no taxes owed on it and we can negotiate lease payments. So, but that when we're talking about it using the residential component as part of the incentive, what we're really talking about is basically giving extra credit if there's a residential component that the city wants to see. If it's the kind of residential development that's happening and it's happening in that mixed use development that is really very attractive and is something that a lot of cities are trying to encourage, then we would use the pilots to actually incentivize the commercial portions of it, but they would get a bigger incentive because there's a residential component to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But pure housing is going to probably go through the Housing Authority.
Right. And the Housing Authority is looking at different programs to where they could be able to participate better with developers. And of course, the property can transfer, be sold, and everything else. But it would be a way for them to, it doesn't have to all be low and moderate income. It could be moderate income. So, but that is definitely going to be in the Housing Authority's rubric.
So it sounds like we're assuming it would be one developer for the total project. You wouldn't have one developer doing the residential part of it and the other developer doing the commercial aspect of it.
It could be done as just one project, and it would incorporate that. And we would just do that through, mutual agreements, because as long as it's coinciding with the overall development, then it should be able to qualify to maximize the points. Because we don't expect all this to happen, like all at one time. It's going to come in phases. So, we would have to be prepared to deal with it in phases as properties and as buildings are built and apartment buildings are built and that kind of stuff. It'll happen in phases. So it'll be the first time it's tested, we'll all move up on the learning curve very quickly.
Okay. I know Logan sent a message. He's got to sign off here in just a few. Do we have anything else we need to hit real quick before we start losing some time?
No, we don't have anything else to vote on. That was just information.
Okay. Well, very good information too. Yes, thank you.
Now we're up to the local partner updates. Clay's not with us. I know he has another meeting. So we have Lynn Tully and April Leeds. And Lynn, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, no problem. Actually, July has been a little slower for us. We have had, obviously, with what's going on with COVID, we've had a lot of our manufacturers kind of change tactics a little bit as they were opening up originally. So we are seeing additional RFIs, though. We are seeing even today we had several folks who were notified that they've been selected in a phase 2. So we're getting beyond the initial stage and getting some of the, again, getting into the second cut. So that's a good thing here regionally and here locally. So hopefully, like I said, we'll see some more activity. Like I said, it's just been a little bit of a slower month than normal. I expect that, hopefully things will kind of start to pick back up in August.
Good.
That's all I've got, Tom.
Thanks, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
April. Hey, there she is.
Hey there. So I'll just make it brief. We're just continuing to work on several projects with the team. And I guess a bigger project right now is we're working on our messaging to site selection consultants, specifically from a virtual platform. So that's really all I have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, April. David, we're at director's discussion at this point. If other than having a budget put in front of you for next month is whatever else you all would like.
I think the budget's the big thing, so we can start making some decisions on some of these projects that are pending.
Yeah, and it'll have some narrative to it, so you'll understand a little more in depth instead of just a large number.
Okay. Did we want to talk about moving that money market?
Yeah, I believe so. If that's what you'd like to do, especially since Logan's still here. Yeah, when I talked to First Horizon, and they said it's about 1/4%, so it's not a lot of money. But you know, if the board wants to take action with that, I don't know if there has to be a resolution like when you open up an account, or if the vote would be enough, or whatever the board's pleasure is, then I could have everything ready for the August meeting.
And my recommendation is, we might as well get it liquid. We know we've got some upcoming projects, and I don't know, even 2 years, I think the best rate I've seen is like 1%. So it's not like you're gaining anything by tying it up at all right now. I'd rather have it liquid, I think, and be ready to move on some of these pending projects. But
So the full 100, the full amount?
Yes, sir.
Nancy's not going like this.
Could we expect to make a motion to that effect?
I believe, yes.
So moved.
Logan,
Second.
Jeff, second.
And the motion is to move the $100,000 into money market
Correct.
at First Horizon Bank.
Correct.
Okay. Danielle, is that anything that we need to get bids on?
Oh, gosh. I don't know, Tom. I'll have to look at the purchasing policy and see if that's going to apply in this situation.
Okay.
So we'll have to get our heads together after the meeting.
Do they need to amend the motion to just for me to pursue that and choose the best interest rate or something like that?
It's probably easiest if you can go ahead and just complete if they would give you the authority to just go ahead and get everything taken care of, rather than having to come back to approve something, as long as you've followed the policy and gotten the best bids.
Amend the motion.
Okay.
Logan amends.
I second the amended motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Anybody opposed? Very good.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments from the other members? Anything we need to bring up? And I do apologize being a few minutes late. I was wolfing down some Wendy's and was like, oh, crap. Got all at it. All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll stand adjourned.
Right. Thank you all.
See ya.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you all.